All right. So I thought just in case some of you were thinking about doing this and weren't sure how to go about it, this is how I would do it. Um, so singing monsters, if we have a look at this little thing here. So it's this cute little thing where it was a game from a couple of years ago where um, each character had its own little noise, and then you could basically make little symphonies with each of the characters. So the challenge for this task, the musical monsters one, is to use Adobe Animate to create, draw, and make a basic animation for for a little character. This is a group task, and then you join all of those characters together to make a little tune or a little song. So what I would tend to do, you're going to have to obviously draw your own little character each, but I would probably use Garageband to create your little tune or come up with your sounds first and think about how they might go together. So I'll just jump over to Garageband here. So this is so that's the idea anyway. You don't want to necessarily do something that full on. It's more about sort of the voice stuff and maybe a bit of some of the characters in musical monsters can play like a stringed instrument or stuff like that, so you get a little bit of violin. But this is how I do it with layers, and that's sort of this little Bailey background here. It's that sort of singing part and the gospel start. So you might. So that can be kind of cool as well. So I'm just going to quickly show you how you might do that. So if we go, I'll just save that. I'll go empty. So if you haven't used GarageBand before, it's pretty easy. It uses loops. So there are PC versions that have do the same sort of thing. So if you go to GarageBand here, you've got all your different layers, and you've got all these here. I've just gone to my, what have I got? Where is it there? Oh yeah, the loop browser right there. That's this over here. So all of these are a little loop. So if you click on it, and you can see down there as it plays along, it's just looping that sound over and over. So they're all little musical tracks for different instruments that can then be placed, that then, will loop seamlessly, and then you can basically layer upon layer different sounds, different instruments. You can add drums and then add guitar and then add tambourine and all that sort of stuff and make pretty nice sounding tunes. But what it does have in the newer versions is the vocal section, which has some really cool stuff as well. And this is what you might want to use for your own characters. So if we go here, for example. Get up, get up, get up. Get up, get up. Oh, get up, get up. So there are some cool things like that you can apply to your character. So then all you have to do really is design your character. You might have one that has a little drum beat that makes it work a little bit better. So you might have a character in your group that plays the drums or the tambourine or something like that. So I'll drag in some of these, and you can do it. Adding it progressively makes it sound a little bit better as well, rather than just all starting at once, which is how sort of the magical monsters worked as well. So if we go this one. That's unpleasant. We'll skip that one. So this is the one I just had in the other song I was playing here. That's pretty cool. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to drag that in. Just drag it over to your timeline here. We don't need this layer, so we can just get rid of that track. And so then we've got this. So it only plays it once. To loop it, you just move your mouse over the end like that and drag it along. It'll just keep looping, and you see those little divots there are the end of each sort of little loop. So then you can just get it to stop like that. So what I would probably do is drag my playhead here back to the start. I'll get out of vocals for a second. We probably want some sort of percussion or drum kit. I might go, actually, I'll go drums. That's not too bad, actually. I might drag that in. You can see here it's got the beat, so sometimes some don't go together. But we'll see how it sounds. So we might do it just after one loop. So we'll just drag that in to start there and see how that sounds. That actually works quite well. So we'll just drag that out a little bit more. So what you would do if you're doing this in a group, you might sort of come up with what the whole track will be, and then you can just export these sounds individually to apply to your own characters. And then you just put all of the characters into an animation together. You can make a background and gradually add them so that you're eventually adding each character and adding the music as well. So now that we've got a beat, we might go back to vocals and add some more vocals for some of your characters. That's not bad. So if you have a weird sort of monster, you could have like a multiple headed one there that does that one. I don't mind that. That would work well for a looped monster as well. So we might just drag that one in. We'll drag it in about there. Oops, went too far. And then we'll keep looking. So that's what I had in that other track before, so I might drag that in as well. Just drag it in here. And now we can just go back to the start and see what we got. I'm just going to drag this over a little bit so we've just got a bit more room. I'll drag this over a little bit as well. Oops, a daisy. There we go. So just with the timing of it, it probably comes in a bit soon. So I might just drag that one along so it starts at the same time as the other voice comes in. So we'll do that again. So that'll work. So you can mess around with that until you get the right sound. So here, if you've got a group of 4, that's your 4 characters. Oops, that's your 4 characters right there. So then you just have to sort of mess around with the timing of it, getting the song sounding right. If we go back to the website, it says your animated sequence should be sort of 1 to 2 minutes, but we've got about 15 seconds there. So you can add, you could have them come in later. You could add, backgrounds and all sorts of stuff to make that a little bit longer. But you could basically, you've got the basis of a song right there. So let's go back to the start. Oops. I didn't notice I did that. I'll just have to bring that back. I got rid of my background there. Let's try again. So that loops like probably the gospel one probably too much and probably comes in a little bit early as well. What you can do also, if rather than have it keep going like that, you can drag it in and then just go Command C, Command V to paste it and put it in at different intervals. So maybe this particular character doesn't sing as often. Maybe it's a less frequent one. There's like in the old sort of musical monsters game, there was sort of a little monster that just goes boom, like every now and again, and he just sort of that could be a nice little sort of backing track as well. You might do a couple of characters each in your group, and sort of make it multiple layered. You can have more drum beats, have more strings. You've got sort of stuff. If you go over here with where are we? Oh, strings right up there. So then you've got all these. So you can have some pretty cool stuff in there as well, and end up with a really nice track. So once you've got that, all you need to do, once you've come up with your track, you can just go share, export song to disk. It'll create, you've got the options there of creating an MP3 or an ARF or a WAV or an AAC. For this, you're probably better off with an MP3 or an ARF. I would tend to create your characters in Animate, but then export the animation into something like Premiere or Final Cut Pro to edit it together, because doing sound in Animate can be a little bit tricky and fiddly, and it's much easier to manage if you do it in an actual film editing program. But that's how I would do it anyway, and that will give you a start on how to make the song, and then all you have to do is create your character and draw them, add a little sort of movement to them. They might just sort of bop up and down, or they might just open their mouth. If you go back here and look at, if we go full screen on this guy, you'll see this one, just sort of the basic animation there is just the mouth moving, a bit of a bounce. This one sort of breathes like a frog. This one just sort of plays his strings. This one just sort of bounces when he says bar. And then the more you add, the more extravagant it gets. So yeah, that's how I would do it. And that you can do some really cool stuff with that. You can obviously, with all this, you can draw in your background, you can draw in your, add more graphics to it, make it sort of basically a little mini film or a little animated film that's musical as well, and just with some nice drawings, some nice animation and stuff, you can do a really cool thing.